Welcome. Today, we're going to talk about the basic components of Polaris and what we can do to make it easier for you to navigate through the program as you start here at our facility. Polaris is a program that acts as a tool for our library so that we can check out items, check in items, maintain item records, etc. Basically, it allows us to function, and so it's important to know and understand the basics for the program in order to better serve our patrons. You can watch this tutorial as many times as you need, and refer back to it if you find yourself forgetting certain lessons. This is a 3-part series that you can watch at different times or all at once. Let's go over the different parts that we'll be covering in the training today. The first part will cover shortcut keys, what they are and why do we need them. We'll also go over checking out, as well as checking in items. We hope to cover most of the nuances that can arise on a fairly frequent basis so you can feel confident behind the desk. The second part will cover patron records, patron status, and the patron registration screens. This section will go hand in hand with signing patrons up for library cards and handling account issues that may be preventing the patron from fully recovering their library privileges. The third part will cover item records, as well as BIP records. This will give you insight in how to access what items we have and don't have, what we can order, how to do lookups, and really understand what information is included on our records. Now that we have a basic idea of where we're going, let's go ahead and get started with the shortcuts. So, shortcuts are a great way to navigate Polaris and to be more efficient when serving our patrons. We'll go over and quickly discuss these shortcuts, but they'll make more sense as we delve deeper into the respective sections that we're covering in this training. For now, just understand that pressing a certain combination of keys or just a single key will bring you to a specific screen. We'll go through and understand what these screens mean at a later time. You'll also be provided with a list of these shortcuts. While this is by no means an exhaustive list, it will provide you with the most essential and most frequently used shortcuts to enhance your experience with Polaris. If you wish to learn more shortcuts, remember you can always hover over icons. It'll provide you with the title of the icon and, if it has one, the shortcut associated with it. So now let's go over the basic keys. F3 is check out, F2 check in, Alt F4 means you close your current screen. F6, patron records, your choice refers to you can set how you would like to look up the patron record. Same thing with F7. We'll show you how to set up your default. F12 brings you to BIP records. Control Alt F9 is item records. Control S is save. Control C, copy text. Control V, paste text, and Control L, log in, log out. There's also Control G, which can bring you to the BIP record from the item record. And again, this will all make more sense later. These are the basic keys though, and they can be very helpful as opposed to remembering the not so intuitive icons within Polaris. We'll understand the keys more, and the more you use them, the more you'll remember them. So let's go ahead and move on to checking out in the next section. Okay, so now that we've covered shortcuts, let's use our first one to access the checkout screen. If you hit F3 near the top of the keyboard, that'll bring you to our checkout screen that looks like this. This screen allows you to check out materials to patrons, and this is what the screen looks like prior to scanning in a patron's barcode. So we're going to go over the different parts that we see as soon as we scan in that barcode. So make sure that the cursor is where it says patron barcode, and then go ahead and scan or type in a patron's individual barcode number. At this point, the screen will populate with information and it'll be ready to receive the item barcodes of what the patron would like to check out. So we'll go ahead and we'll scan it, and it populates the screen. And so it gives you some information at a glance here, but it's all significant nonetheless. So one of the first things you'll notice immediately to the right of the barcode is the name, patron name. Feel free to confirm with the patron that that's the name that should be on the account. Sometimes families have multiple cards. And immediately below the barcode, you can see it has the charges. These account charges reflect overdue fines, replacement cost, damage fines, among other charges. If this number is at $5 or greater, the patron will be denied access to check out. It must be at least at $4.99 or lower to check materials out. Charges, though, do not matter at our branch if the patron just wishes to use the computer. If you see a patron has more than $5 on the account, kindly remind them of our policy. If the patron has less than $5 but still a charge, also remind them that they do have a fine on their account and that they can either pay that now or at a later time. This prevents surprises from happening later, since many times patrons are either unaware that they turned in an item late or will simply forget and then get frustrated with our staff. So having accounts up to date helps both us as staff and the patron as well. So below that, you can see account credit. That is not used within our system, so you can disregard that section. Next is items out. This will show the number of items that are currently out on the account. As we scan items, you'll notice this number increases. For our system, there's a 30 item limit for each account. Patrons may not exceed this limit. If they are close, remind the patron that they are nearing the limit. There are times when patrons will return items in the book drop and have close to 30 items out. They'll then try to check out more, but because they're in the book drop and weren't returned to the front, they haven't been taken off the account yet. In this case, we can't check out the new items, not until we've had the ones from the book drop checked in. So remind the patron that if they wish to check items out, they'll have to return the items to the front desk next time so that they can immediately be taken off the account, and they'll have room to check out more items. Below that, we see total overdue. If the patron has overdue items, they'll be unable to use the self-check or to renew items online. They'll also be charged accordingly. Our policy is 25 cents a day for adult and media items, with a maximum of $5 per item, and 10 cents a day for children's, with a maximum charge of $3 per item. If you see any overdue items, remind the patron and ask if they would like you to renew those items. We'll go over how to do that in another section. If patrons have a claimed or lost book, that's going to be listed right below, right here. This will show items held, meaning that the item was shipped and it's physically at our branch. This differentiates greatly from the information below, which shows their requests. They may have requested 2 books, but only one has actually arrived here. On the next side, we'll see that it tells you the patron code. This code is important because it determines the privileges of the user. There are codes such as adult unfiltered, juvenile unfiltered, internet only, limited new, group home, and homebound, among others. These codes give varying levels of access to library services to patrons. So, for example, a patron with an adult unfiltered code will be unable to use a children's computer. A patron with an internet-only code will be unable to check out items. And a patron with a limited code means that they have a new card and will only be able to check out a max of 2 items, as opposed to the 30-item limit. And a patron with a homebound card will have their card held behind the desk. So the birth date is listed below, and also helps you to see if the patron is listed with an appropriate code. If you see a child using the card, but the birth date is from 1972, feel free to confirm that this child was given access to the account. Below is the email, pretty self-explanatory. If the patron is a minor, under 18 years of age, make sure that there's someone listed in the parent guardian section. Otherwise, ask your supervisor for assistance to get the appropriate forms filled out. In a similar vein, there is an agreement section portion of the screen. This access agreement can be done at any time, but is primarily handled at the creation of the card. If a patron is granting access to someone, they can only pick up holds and pay fees and fines on their behalf, and that is it. They may do nothing else. Typically, we have minors grant access to their parents because inevitably parents will be the one to come handle account issues on their child's behalf. They will be unable to do this unless this is filled out and signed and put in on this screen. So this may be different if the child is around 17 years of age, but otherwise we strongly encourage the child to allow access to the parent. Then we see phone and receipt options, also pretty self-explanatory. So below that, on the right side of the screen, we see different icons. These icons are for viewing different screens on the patron status page. We'll go over these icons and pages in part 2, so hold tight on those. We also see on the right side the loan period section. So the instances when we use these are few and far between, but they do occur occasionally. If you select these, it allows you to alter the due date to be something other than the typical 2-week checkout period. So we mainly use this only for our mystery book club. You'll select special, you'll select the date that it's supposed to come on. We usually give them about a month, and then you press OK. So the next item you scan in is going to be due on that date that you selected. So now that we've covered all the basic info presented on this screen, let's look on how to actually check an item out. So let's close this out, Alt F4, then you'll press F3 to bring that page back again. And so as always, we start by scanning the patron's barcode. It'll populate with their information, and then that cursor will be sitting in the item barcode box, waiting for the item to be scanned. This pop-up here just shows they have overdue items. At this point, you can ask the patron if you'd like us to have them renewed. But here's where the item barcode cursor goes. And so you'll scan the item, and then it'll populate with that information. We'll scan a couple items here, and then when you're done, you can just press enter. And so when you press enter, it means the transaction's finished. You can either print a receipt or not, depending on what the patron wants. In this case, we won't, but if you do, the receipt just prints out and you can give it to the patron. That's the basic gist of checking out. You pull on that down arrow, it populates with the previous patron. Notice that our items checked out has increased, so it reflects now the new books. We're going to go over some oddball messages that can pop up as you're checking items out, just so you have an idea of what they mean prior to starting. So if we scan an item with multiple parts or multiple discs, we'll see a pop-up asking us to make sure that we check all the parts and count those discs. So just make sure that you count them, and then you can press OK and continue with the checkout. So we count the discs, press enter. If the item is already checked out to the patron, then it'll pop up to renew. If the patron wants to renew it, then press enter. If the patron wants to renew it and it's already overdue, then you press enter to renew it and charge the account. Sometimes the patron wants to renew an item, but there's already a request placed on it, or they've run out of renewals. In that case, do not override it. Just press no and let the patron know you can place another request for them. So here you see it asking you to renew, press enter, no problems. We're going to scan another item though, and we'll say yes. It's saying that they're out of renewals here, so we have to tell them that we can't. Right now we'll press yes just to show you that it's going to charge their account. So this one was overdue, but they wanted to renew it. So it will charge, but still check out to them, so charges stop accruing. So there may be times that the item will pop up and the barcode doesn't work. It'll read a message saying that it's not linked to a record and cannot circulate. Oop, this is the wrong one. Let's go ahead and rescan that. It asks you if you'd like to create a record on the fly. Never say yes. When the pop-up comes up, go see whichever cataloger is present that day. Ask if they could please input the item into the system. This usually takes a couple minutes to do, so kindly let the patron know if they don't mind waiting a couple minutes that it takes to put the item into the system. We can have it ready for them to check out. And then once the item is inputted, you can just check it out as if it's a normal item, it'll be in there. So press no for that one. There may be times that it's non-circulating. This means that it's for library use only, and this can happen with magazines and certain reference materials. So do not override this block. Just let the patron know. We can look up a similar title and check that one out if they wish. And if you scan an item and the pop-up says that it's checked out to another patron, would you like to continue with checkout? Confirm where the patron got the item. If it's off the shelf, go ahead, continue with checkout. If you notice that it may have been taken from a different patron, kindly let them know that this item is unavailable at the time. So we'll go ahead and we'll scan that one. And yeah, so see how it's asking you whether you'd like to check out to the new patron. Just say yes or no if it seems like they took it from somebody else. Okay, so now we're just going to print out the receipt, show you a couple of other messages. So there are patrons who cannot check materials out, such as those with internet-only codes. They usually have this code because they did not present their ID at the time of card creation. You can ask your supervisor on a case-by-case basis to do a small investigation to see why exactly they're restricted from borrowing. Is it no ID? Is it a mistake? Do they have a different account? They'll help you resolve the issue, but don't check out to them. Press no. Because we want to make sure why were they not given these privileges to begin with. And sometimes an account is simply expired. It expires every 3 years, so this pop-up will come when you try to check out to them. All you're going to have to do is update their contact information, and then you can go ahead and proceed to the registration page to do that. Afterward, you can check the items out, and we'll go more into depth on how to do that renewal process later. Of course, these are not all the challenges that will arise during your time on desk, but it does cover the most common ones. If you ever don't remember or understand, feel free to reach out to your coworkers, supervisor, and manager. We're all happy to help. So to recap, we've gone over shortcuts and how to check items out to patrons. Now we're going to see how to check items in, meaning that they are coming back to the library. So go ahead and press F2, and you'll see that the check-in screen pops up. Some things to notice before we start checking in items. On the top, we have the area where we'll scan the item barcode. That's where the cursor goes right here. To the right of that, we have free days. What does this mean? If we put one free day, that means the system is reading the item and checking it in as if it was checked in 1 day ago. This would prevent a fine on the patron's item if it was overdue. When do we use this? Every day. When we check items in from the morning book drop, the one we retrieve prior to opening, we will give them 1 free day because since we weren't open, we want to make sure that we essentially backdate it to yesterday. That way, they don't get fined. We might also do this if a patron turned in an item on time, but it was waiting assessment for damage or something of that nature before it was checked in. So that's just the 2 main things that we see on the top before we get started. Next, let's take a look at the different headings. So all the way to the left, we have barcode, then we have the due date, then status. We'll see that this can be a variety of things: out to in, in repair to in, bindery to in, unavailable to in, lost to in, among others. There usually won't be too much in the comments next. Sometimes it'll say the item was already checked in. Next, we see the fine charged. If an item is overdue, it's charged accordingly. Again, 10 cents a day for children's items and 25 cents a day for adult and media items, with $3 maximum per children's item and $5 maximum for adult and media. Then we have the title and material type. On the left-hand side, we can see there's some icons. This first icon is normal mode. When you check an item in, it'll check each item in individually as well as charge individually if the item is late. Then there's bulk mode. This means that the patron's account will automatically be charged. This is what we want your default to be set to, and we'll show you how to do that in a minute. Next is in-house. We'll use this at the end of the day after cleanup. These are books that were not checked out but left out on the tables indicating they were used. We want to know what books were used for statistical purposes, even if they weren't necessarily checked out. Beneath that, you'll see inventory, but we will not use this screen. So now that we've gone over the different elements involved on the screen, we can start checking items in and see what pops up. We can also reset our default. So make sure you're selected on normal mode, the one on the top of the left-hand side, and I'm going to go ahead and check in a late item. We'll see what pops up. So here we go. You see how it's asking me to charge the account? We'll select charge the account and then go to the next item. To avoid this though, let's see what happens when we charge an item through bulk mode. So we press charge. Let's go ahead and go to bulk mode. Okay, so we're on bulk mode. We're gonna go ahead and charge in another late item. We'll charge in 2. And you're gonna see how it automatically charges the fine on the account without you having to select charge account each time. that's going to be listed right over here under the heading of fine charge. We can see that for these, it was 40 cents each. Looks like they were children's items, and they were charged 10 cents a day for each day they were late, so they were 4 days late. So this is as opposed to going back to that normal mode, and we have to charge each of an individual account. So it saves us time when we're checking in a large amount of items, or we have to just move quicker because we're at the front desk. So now let's see how we're going to change our default. Make sure it's already on that bulk mode. View, save current view as user default. So again, as long as you're on bulk mode, you go up to that view, you can select that, and it becomes your default. So we click off, we press F2 again, pops up. Now you can see it's already in bulk mode when we bring it up again. Now we're going to see some of the different status changes and pop-ups when we check items in. First one is withdrawn, so if we press OK, it takes it from withdrawn back into our system. Then we also have unavailable to in. If a record doesn't exist in our system, we'll see this pop up. So you can give this item to the cataloger to see if they want to input it back into our system. Another status change that we have is in repair to in. So we'll just press OK here, and you can see under the status change, it's in repair to in. If an item has multiple pieces, like we saw with the checkout, you just count. This one was in to in, and then in the comments, it'll let you know the item was not checked out. But make sure you count the pieces if it has that pop-up. It could be coming from the bindery. Here's another example of in to in with the comments. And again, if anything here is late, or if it's going from out to in and it's late, you'll have that fine charged in that particular column. So you can see the different status changes. If you notice anything weird, let your supervisor or cataloger know. If you need to access a different screen from here related to the record, you can right click, press open. That's going to take you to the item record. And then we'll go over this screen in detail more later. If you right click it, you can also go to links. You can place a hold, but if we go down to links, it can take you to a lot of different places. For example, last borrower, and that will give you who last brought it in. So if they forgot to turn in a disk and you checked it in already, right click last borrower, then we can contact them to make sure that they have the missing disk. And there's a variety of other places that we can go and check from this screen. It's just good to know that you have this little shortcut that you can go immediately to those other places so you can grab the information that you need. And again, that's always right click and link. So now that we know how to check items in and out, we can go on to patron records in part 2 of this series.